There's a scene in this movie where the characters take advantage of thunderclaps to drown out a loud noise they're making, Andy Dufresne style. I cannot have been the only person who wanted it to cut to outside where the monsters are trying to attack the sound of the thunder. You know, just like... A Quiet Place Day 1 is a spin-off in John Krasinski's horror series, this one directed by Michael Sarnowski. It is not part 3 of the Abbott family storyline, that comes next year. Here we follow Lupita Nyong'o as a New York City cancer patient who's fighting even harder for her life on Day 1 of the blind armored creatures' invasion of the planet. First thing to note is that the premise contradicts the newspaper headline we see in the first movie about New York City going on lockdown. This movie takes place entirely in the city, and it never goes on lockdown, nor would it ever, given how the movie ends. It's not really important, I know, but a headline about lockdown is impossible to unsee with the knowledge that the invasion happens in 2020. So when you take that minuscule detail into consideration, this entire movie falls apart like a game of Jenga. But if you just consider that headline fake news or something, you got a pretty decent spin-off here. It's great to see more of what went down at the time the monsters invaded and the chaos was at its peak. We got a taste of that with a rural area in the opening scene of Part 2, but this new perspective of a densely populated city on an island brings a different experience. Basically like Cloverfield without the found footage. It does still deliver a lot of the nail-biting, breath-holding thrills that made parts 1 and 2 so effective, with the premise of silence is survival, which in the case of this movie is both a strength and a weakness. It makes for another scary experience, but at this particular time and location, it strains plausibility. At the beginning of this invasion, before the discovery is made that keeping silent is the way to evade the monsters, it's going to start with sheer chaos, which, yes, is what's depicted, and naturally that would make it take a while for the pattern to be recognized, and mass communication would be extremely difficult. So obviously there's going to be a lengthy process of everyone discovering the key to survival, right? Actually, no, the whole city figures it out pretty quickly, and it's not made clear how. The lead character gets knocked out early in the movie, and when she wakes up, everyone just knows, and she's told about it right away. There are also a few more noticeable inconsistencies than in the other movies. Like in A Flooded Staircase, a guy bursts out of the water gasping for air, and it's clearly loud enough to attract the monsters, and yet it doesn't. Plus, I do have a hard time buying just how long the protagonist's pet cat manages to survive for. Now, the animal is actually the best character in the movie, which is quite often the case in creature features. But the cat spends a fair amount of time wandering the city on its own, and it must have gotten the memo too because it apparently never makes a sound. Sure, cat meows are usually pretty quiet, but I don't know, seems at least on the cusp of something the monsters would hear. So that all detracts from what is otherwise a tense stroll through a desolated city that's bolstered by Michael Sarnowski's direction, the always impressive effects, and the performances by the two lead actors. Lupita Nyong'o said the most challenging part was learning how to communicate through subtle gestures of body language as opposed to dialogue, and she and her co-star Joseph Quinn pull it off very well, even if I didn't have as strong an attachment to their characters as I did the Abbott family. Also featured is Djimon Hounsou's character from Part 2, who we now know, at least from the credits, is named Henri. He doesn't have a major role in this. He's present mainly to let us know that this story is coinciding with the city evacuation he told Emmett about. I won't say more than that it is riveting to see another point of view of that event that helped make it happen. And those final 5 minutes did hit me a little more emotionally than the rest of the movie did. So, A Quiet Place Day 1 may not be up to par with its predecessors. It doesn't have quite the dramatic heft or the religious subtext of Parts 1 and 2, and I don't see myself rewatching it as often. But it is an interesting new perspective of the world those movies built, and in its own right, it's a tense thriller that is worth watching once for the experience. Scoring on the Factor Facts, I'm going to give A Quiet Place Day 1 a 65%. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this review helpful. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.